Hey, welcome to Luke's Television Review. Today I'm going to be checking out Gotham Knights Season 1, Episode 1. I've already seen it, so this is a breakdown of it. Okay, start out with not Dick Grayson. For some reason, they have somebody else. Seems like maybe this is an alternate universe, and I would be coming at it I'm coming at it from kind of a normie perspective, you guys would say, because I've just seen the Tim Burton movies, the Chris Nolan movies, and the 60s Batman series, and and I've read one of the books. It was Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises, which was better than the movie. So anyway, so you got not Dick Grayson here. He's looking out the window for Wayne Enterprises. He's telling this story from delivering a monologue from after this all happened. So it's like, okay, so we know that he survived. All right. The stakes aren't high for him dying at all because we know that he survived. Hey, this is a police blimp. I'm like, why would they have blimps? To me, that doesn't make any sense unless it was in the comic. Because it'd be a lot more effective to have either airplanes or helicopters. Blimps can get shot down very easily, and they aren't very fast. So he's at Wayne Enterprises telling a story how Bruce Wayne took him in after his parents died, adopted him. So it's like, okay. He goes over to, he's looking out the window. He goes over to his bookshelf, opens it up, and it has some Batman memorabilia in it. It has a Batarang, another Batarang, and it looks like a Halloween Batman mask. I'm like, okay. So then it cuts to him at school, fencing with his rival. Got this gal here who's supposedly his best friend, and she's kind of cute in this scene. But yeah, my opinion of her changes throughout that. She's like, "Oh, well, where's your dad?" He's like, "I don't know. He was supposed to be here, but he's a he's like, oh, my dad's a turd though. Just only cares about money." And he's like, "Hey, who wants to go to a party at my place?" So he invites a bunch of people he doesn't even know, which is really weird. This guy gets drunk. Keep in mind that all of these are supposed to be high schoolers. And they're also supposed to be drinking alcohol. It's like, okay. So minors drinking alcohol. Alright, CW. This guy, being a moron, knocks his face off. And let's see if I can get a shot of it. This gal catches it. She's at the right place at the right time. He's like, "Oh, nice reflexes." I'm like, those aren't reflexes. She literally just reached over and caught it. It's like wasn't really a diving catch. It was just he was there. Like, okay. He's like, "Do I know you?" She's like, "Oh, well, we have trigonometry together." And in a big public school, I guess that doesn't mean much. I guess it's a private school, but anyway. Big school, I guess that doesn't mean a whole lot. You don't get to know your classmates. I went to a small private school. Um, I knew everybody in the school, but it was very, very small. My graduating class was for the whole school at about 23. Anyway, he's like, "Oh, I don't even know these people. Half these people." I'm like, why did you invite them? Doesn't make sense. So, come to find out, there's this gal here named Cresta who, for some reason, Alfred's not around. I don't know why. And she's like, oh, hey, underage drinking? Yeah, no problem, but there's some people having sex in the billiard room. He's like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. So he goes in. It's his supposed best friend and rival. They haven't started yet. They're just making out. It's like, okay, whatever. That's stupid. Comes over, takes his drink and drinks. It's like, what the heck, dude? He's just really smug. Like, oh yeah, I know you want me. So then we cut to this scene where this guy is posing as a janitor. Walks in, nods at the security guy. Security guy's like, oh yeah, you're just a janitor. Okay, so this building, it looks like there's a security camera here, or maybe a light. There's an obvious one here. Wayne Enterprises would have a lot more than just this little one hallway camera. So anyway, he takes the mops the camera. I guess he's got paint on it or something because otherwise it wouldn't really distort as much. So, see where are we at here. He sheds his janitor costume. This gal and another gal. We find out it's Joker's daughter. Another gal is his sister. I don't know what this is, but she takes off vent and just kind of throws this thing here somewhere. He literally pulls it out of like nowhere, pulls out of her butt and tosses it to the side. I'm like, okay, whatever. So then they walk into this room. Keep in mind, this is a very high floor. There would be security cameras in this room as well. And by the time this happened, this isn't very long. It's maybe a minute or so. Security would have seen something happen on the cameras and would be on this. Okay, so they walk in here, getting their fingerprints and DNA all over. They don't even look to the side. He goes right for the safe. His sister goes right to the safe. He knows where it's at because they were paid to do stuff. They're all talking. Yeah, there'd probably be audio recording devices in there too. Anyway, there's nothing but a firearm in the safe. There's a pistol. He says it was the pistol that was used to murder Bruce Wayne's parents. She said is by like Joe somebody. I'm like, okay, well in the Batman universe I know, it was Jack Napier, the Joker that killed him. I'm like, okay, but yeah, she's like flat out stroking it and whatnot. They're getting their fingerprints stuff on and DNA on it. And she comes over and sniffs the barrel and says it's been fired recently. Okay, unless you're part dog, that just wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. No. And she says it's still warm, and I'm like, it has been sitting in there for a little while now, at least, because it was sitting in there the entire time while he was coming in as the janitor's person. They were breaking in, all this stuff. No. They just now look over into that other room and see this cartoonishly cut out window. It says your bat is dead. Okay. Kind of implies that there's other bats out there. Just like, hey, yours is dead. Okay. And we can see that they're very high up. Several stories up. But they look out and they cut down to, let's see, down. We get a good shot of it. Okay. Now it looks like they're only a few stories up. Maybe 2 or 3. And this guy's facing the wrong direction for that type of a fall. I would think his head would be over here. Okay. So they're like, oh, we gotta get out of here. Police show up. For some reason, see, this is Harvey Dent. For some reason, the district attorney is one of the first responders to this. That doesn't make any sense. So anyway, they show up. He's like, "Oh, it's Bruce Wayne," and Bruce Wayne is, for some reason, give it. We can get a shot of it. He's wearing a Batman Halloween mask. I'm like, okay, why? That doesn't cover much of his face at all. Nothing. Okay. So, alright. Kind of looks believable that he's dead. Okay, he's... They're like, oh, we gotta go. And then the police come in, really incompetent. They overpower the police, even though there's at least a good 3 of them armed. 3 of the police armed. So, yeah. This guy, where are we at here? Picks up the radios and is like, oh, hey, once they're in the stairwell. And then he picks up another radio and is like, oh, yeah, I confirmed they're in the stairwell. And the police believe him. He obviously sounds like a kid. He sounds nothing like... He would sound nothing like... They're people... You would know who you're working with. This is just stupid. So you would think that the police would have the place fairly well surrounded-ish. You know, all the exits. They think that somebody's robbing the place. And it's been a while now. They would have it. And they got helicopters in the sky and stuff. Like, oh, we gotta get out of here. But oh look, there is nobody guarding this exit. They show up to, for some reason, an abandoned police car. Play for a little bit. YouTube shouldn't gig me. Goes down. Does the stereotypical thing where you get 2 ignition wires and they put them together. Keep in mind, though, that on newer cars, I say newer, like older than newer than the 80s, their steering column locks unless you physically unlock it with a key. So, anyway, not sure how the newer ignitions work. Maybe the steering column doesn't lock as much, but I would think on a police car it would. So yeah, all these police cars are just unmanned, nothing. There's some people over here. They don't see nothing. So they get away, scot-free, acting like morons. Okay, we're acting very obvious. These people still underage drinking. The cops show up and tell him, oh hey, by the way, your dad's dead. And then in the hallway, he tells him that his dad was Batman. I'm like, okay, what the heck? And then, if somebody was murdered and you're like the DA or something, you don't, somebody's murdered or somebody experienced a loved one dying, you don't tell him promises that might not be able to keep. He says, oh, we'll find the people. And he's like, oh, that's what you said about my parents. That's what the cops said about my parents. Like, okay. So the cops and Harvey Dent are just idiots in this. Pretty much everybody's a moron in this. And then he's at the Wayne Manor talking to his supposed best friend, who's been pretty shady this whole time. This looks obviously suspicious here. Whole thing? So anyway, he has a drink, throws the drink over here, and they hear dripping sounds, and it's coming from over here. And then they lean against this thing, and it unlocks. It'll be a lot more guarded, hidden a lot more than that. They go down, and it's the Batcave. It's the CW Batcave. You get the car and everything, and for some reason out here is lit, which I would think that it wouldn't be because you just have headlights and a waste of electricity, but that's just me. Alright, so you'd think, okay, they're just mourning Bruce Wayne's death. Because surely they wouldn't be stupid enough to tell the city that the public that Batman's dead, right? Nope, they did. They told everybody the Batman's dead. Okay, you morons. Now the criminals know. So these three stooges are in there, and for some reason they're still hanging around Gotham. They're still in their hanging around their hideout, even though it takes at least a few days to arrange a funeral. So it's been at least a few days, you'd think. They're going through the cash, which, at least they were paying cash, so it can't be traced. Because how banks tend to work is they track the numbers that come in, but they don't track the numbers that go out unless they get robbed. Because like if you go up to make a withdrawal from your bank, they're not gonna, and you do a cash withdrawal, they're not gonna log all those numbers. I mean, they might do a log of, okay, we have these numbers in our system. We still have these numbers in our system, but it would take a long time to go through all that. They just don't do that unless it's a robbery. The other account, she's like, hey, we should get out of here. They're all like, we should get out of here. I think she's supposed to be Joker's daughter, and she's just like, no, we're fine. Somebody tipped him off to where their hideout is. So the police come in, get captured, have another cringy fight scene. And Harvey Dent comes up and says, hey, we got the peeps that think murder your dad, even though they have no evidence that they murdered them. They just have evidence that they broke in. And then you have circumstantial evidence with putting their prints and DNA on the firearm. But that's all. You don't really have a solid case there, buddy. So anyway, he's like, oh, well, with Batman dead, how are they going to find, how is this case going to get solved? It's like, oh, well, we're the police. It's like, the police didn't do anything to find my real parents' murderers. It's like, okay, you moron. Whatever. And he just stands there and takes it. And then Cresta's watching the television. We see that because they told the criminals that, hey, Bruce Wayne was Batman, Batman's dead. They're just kind of running rampant because the police are morons. And Batman isn't there to pick up the slack. Cresta's like, oh, I don't mind underage drinking, but truancy, yeah, that's where I draw the line. You gotta go to school. Because he's like, in the morning I don't really want to go to school. So then we get an interrogation scene where the Joker's daughter is being interrogated. She's like, well, Joker dropped me off at Arkham Asylum when I was just a baby, and I grew up there. For some reason, she grew up in Arkham Asylum instead of an orphanage. I don't know why. Like, oh yeah, he had sex with Harley Quinn and abandoned me, so I hate him. Okay, it's like, so I like Batman because that. Not really convincing, but okay. So he's being real smug, even though the police and everything, everybody in this show is just incompetent morons. Really bad writing. So we show him at school with Blondie here. His rival comes up, says something insensitive to him, like, oh, hey, I bet it's relief that your dad died, and he's, or something like that. It's like, okay, you're a moron. She's been real shady. Come to find out, she's going to meet not Dick Grayson. Like, hey, stick with me through all this. She's like, oh yeah, you can come to me if you need, tell me anything, even if you want to lie. It's like, why would you want him to lie to you? Doesn't make any sense. So there's further interrogation. You got the sister here. Apparently she's bisexual, I guess, which, okay, you're making a villain bisexual. Alphabet Mafia is not going to be happy about that, unless they do what they did in Batwoman, where, yeah, you committed, seriously, in Batwoman, they're like, oh, you committed attempted murder, well, we're going to let you go because you're gay. And Batwoman did a bunch of pretty bad stuff, crime stuff, and they're like, ah, oh, no, she's gay, so we're just going to. What? So anyway, they interrogate the brother. They don't get anything out of any of those, really. And then he does a really... Harvey Dent does a really terrible attempt at trying to get her to cup up and... yeah. Get her to give information. He's like, oh, I did it. I just want to protect my brother, and he didn't have anything to do with it. I murdered him. It's like, okay, you're obviously lying. Even if I didn't know any of the prior scenes, you're lying. One, you're a terrible actress. Two, I don't know. Maybe she's not. Just me, it's coming across weird. But you're coming across way too desperate. And you literally just listed your motivation as to why you would admit it, but as to why you would admit to a crime you didn't commit. So they don't believe her. So then you got Blondie here. And not Dick Grayson. They walked into the Bat Cave that they found, and the computer was just on. Not locked, anything. And he's like, can you hack it? She's like, oh yeah, I'm great at everything. I can totally hack this thing. And somehow she gets into all of the servers of all the banks around the world and finds wire transfers. She says, okay, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. It's like, she's like, oh, I'm in all the banks and everything. That would take a long time and a lot. What the heck? Anyway, she's like, oh, I found these wire transfers. They're coming from you. Cops come in and arrest him. This hooker here, maybe. Harvey Dent's like, don't tell him anything till your lawyers show up. Gonna find out his lawyers aren't gonna touch this thing. So it's up to Harvey Dent to come up with a defense for him. This guy's like, oh hey, yeah, they tracked the cash, the serial numbers on the cash. Same ones used to pay off the Three Stooges. And I'm just thinking, okay, that doesn't make any sense. So he comes in, talks to not Dick Grayson, and then he shows him a piece of evidence. It's like, not in an evidence bag, nothing. And so it gets his fingerprints all over it, gets DNA all over it, and it's like, you guys are just incompetent. He's like, have you ever seen this before? He's like, no. It's like, okay. He takes it, he's like, oh, by the way, your dad's lawyers, yeah, they're not going to touch this case with a 10-foot pole. They think you're guilty. He's like, do you think I'm guilty? He's like, just hang in there. He walks out. For some reason, they decide they're going to put him in the same cell with the Three Stooges. And if the cops were trying for a usual suspects thing, I could see it being like, okay, that would make sense, but no, come to find out the cops are just stupid. So they put them in, they're in the only holding cell that the police station has. They're like, oh, hey, so you paid us off, huh? What the heck? He's like, I didn't pay you guys nothing. And for some reason, so they start a fight. These guys come in, no riot gear, no nothing. And at least one of them ends up kind of getting the butt kicked. But they subdue the situation. Harvey Dent comes, talks to his boss. Sorry, I'm kind of rattling this off a bit. She's like, hey, yeah, this guy, doesn't matter if he's innocent or guilty. It'll be good for your image if you prosecute him and try to take him down. I'm like, okay, if he's innocent, that's not going to look good, especially if he gets acquitted later on because they're like, oh no, he was actually innocent at the time. So she's a moron. He's a moron. He doesn't agree to it right away, but it's like, okay. For some reason, he didn't make a phone call before they put him in the holding cell. They do the processing before they put you in the holding cell. So that timeline of events doesn't make sense. For some reason, instead of making a phone call to a lawyer or something, well, I guess he already talked to the district attorney. I don't know. He talks to Blondie, says, hey, you still with me on this? She's like, oh, yeah, totally. He gets put in the same transport with the Three Stooges. She's like, oh, yeah, we're going to get out of this. Which side are you on? Like, what are you talking about? She's like, oh, yeah, we're going to break out of here. And we're going to...
I just want to say, great job. You made it look so convincing.
That was supposed to be fake.
Well, the punches were real enough.
And much of the feelings behind them.
But we had to lure the cops in somehow. How else could we get our hands on a few of their little trinkets that we can use to get out of these cop locks?
Okay. So, supposedly they started a fight to get these off of the police. Okay, how is this supposed to fit into this? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so we see who's supposed... The cops would have searched them before putting them on the transport. They would have searched them after the fight. They would have noticed that their stuff was missing. But I guess we've already established that these cops are morons. So this dude shows up. He's supposed to be guarding them, but he's pretty much just looking at his phone the whole time. There's only one driver. You know, there's no co-driver. Yeah, this guy over here, their only guard, who's not watching his charge at all the whole time. So he doesn't notice at all, and this guy's looking at his phone pretty much the whole time. Doesn't notice till the guy on his phone finally looks up, sees her messing with her handcuffs. He's like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm trying to get my handcuffs off. The other two got him off just fine. So then they start having a fight. Overpowered. If I show this better.
What's it gonna be about, Brett?
So this guy reaches up and waits a few seconds. Instead of shooting her with the stun gun, waits a few seconds, and I don't know who he's pointing at. He's pointing past her, past him, and then she takes it, fires, and it hits the driver.
Trying to get these stupid handcuffs undone with this damn pin. Trying to get these stupid handcuffs. Trying to get...
This guy has. It shoots up, shoots him in that little tiny spot because here's his helmet and here's the back of the thing. So it would have had to back of his vest. It would have had to land right in here. So it hit at right best. I don't know. That's really just lucky aim right there. So he gets shocked, and for some reason, getting shocked knocks him out. Okay, so then they're going, and it lands on its side. They're coming out. We got one car in front, three in the back. These guys are really close to their vehicles. They're coming out, and when they're coming out, let's see if I can get a good shot of it. She does not have her finger on the trigger at all, so they can shoot her. She's not going to fire. No finger on the trigger. Not the trigger. No, no, no. No. All those shots, she does not have her finger on the trigger. And then now she has her finger on the trigger. Okay. Now, and then not Dick Grayson gets in front and says, hey, this isn't how we're going to do this. Can't prove we're criminals by doing something criminally. She's like, well, they're in on it. This guy and these cops, they're all in on this, even though we didn't see any scenes or anything. Nothing to suggest that the cops were crooked. But he's like, oh yeah, totally. And you just made our job a lot. Yeah, we're crooked. And you just made our job a lot easier. So we're gonna shoot you and just say that we were planning on doing something when we got to the jail, but we're just gonna shoot you now, just saying that you were trying to escape. So like, okay, they're all just. A lot of times they just have their mouths hanging open. I don't know if they're mouth breathers or what. So, okay, this batarang shoots from the left. His left. And kind of a lowish angle. Alright. And then we see this car here, the lead vehicle. If I can. And then we see a rocket come from up here. Like from a building way up here. From the right. Come down. And shoot this car. And it looks like actually there's somebody in here. So, well, they're dead. So whoever's doing this is obviously a criminal. So it blows up. They all look, mouths agape, like, oh, wow, what the heck? Alright. Then they look back, because somebody's putting stuff on these guys' vehicles. Somebody from... Let this play a little bit. Okay, that blows up from that side. Kind of a fakey thing. Fakey fire. Somebody's come along, putting explosive stuff. They're really close to that vehicle. And okay, so we're saying the glass shatters out. Well, they're lacerated like crazy. They would have cuts all over. But they're fine. So then we got this little girl comes in, beats the crap out of one guy while everybody else stands around. Still standing around, not doing anything, and just waiting to get hit. And she's got, back that up a little bit. It's pixelating for some. She's got lights shining in her eyes. She would not be able to see really at all. So she beats the crap out of these peeps. Jumps up off of I don't even know what. Hits these guys. Got lights just shining right in her eyes. He's like, whoa, you must have like bionics or something. Here, how about you kick me? Like, oh, I'm Robin. It's like, no, 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 girl, no, you're not. You're like, not. Yeah, this is bad. Like, really cringe. Like, all the fights in this are just really cringe. And look how she telegraphs that. And he doesn't dodge it or anything. That's just, oh, for the love of. And they're like, well, did you bring the Batmobile? Because they're like, how'd you know we were here? She's like, oh, I tracked you. Okay, keep in mind that the convoy stopped. Police monitoring this convoy would be on the way. They maybe even be on the scene by now. But she's like, oh, part detective, you know, I'm a superhero, so I tracked you. And they're like, well, did you bring the Batmobile? She's like, no, I brought my mom's car. She was the one that shot that rocket over there. We don't actually see that. I just headcanoned it. So anyway, they have a bit of an argument. She's like, I'm not going anywhere with this guy. He might be in on it. And then she slugs him. Because she's like, I'm not in on it. So then she slugs him, and then she's like, let's go. Okay, what the heck? So instead of going to some safe place or whatever, it's like I said, the cops would be on him like crazy. They go to Bruce Wayne's gravesite. She does a bunch of cringy dialogue, making Bruce Wayne out to seem like a creeper, because she's like, oh, he called me his little Robin. And she's like, oh, he loved you so much. He thought you were the greatest. He said you were his hero. So she's saying that Bruce Wayne thought that not Dick Grayson was Bruce Wayne's hero. And then she also says, oh, by the way, because he's like, oh, how did you meet him? She's like, oh, well, some criminals shot him on a rooftop, and I dragged him off of it to safety. Yeah, you like 90, 80 pounds, maybe 75, soaking wet, dragged with gear on, 300-ish pound, even on the lighter side, 260 or 70-ish. Yeah, roughly 300-pound guy with all his gear, maybe more than that. You dragged him anywhere. That's not blue. So anyway, eventually Joker's daughter is like, well, we gotta go. Police are gonna be on us. Blondie here comes into the Batcave, which should be crawling with cops. Should be taped off like a crime scene, but no. She just has access to it, no problem. And she's like, it really makes it seem like she's like, ha, well, my plan to get rid of them didn't work. Let's go with plan B. Now I know people are going to say she's actually going to be somebody else, but that's the way it's looking. She's really shady. So they go to not Dick Grayson's spot. He says it's a hiding space where nobody find him or whatever, or think to look. He's like, we gotta get out of here. Like, yeah, we gotta go. And Joker's daughter's like, no, we're fine. And they have a bunch of cringy dialogue. This guy's like, oh, hey, by the way, I grabbed a watch off of that guy. And the watch, just the guy that detective guy that was supposed to be guarding them. Anyway, so the watch just happens to have the same insignia as this number.
Street value.
As the unprotected evidence that Harvey Dent showed, not Dick Grayson. How convenient. And there it is, that's better. So anyway, Joker's daughter's like, oh, I know this insignia. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? She's like, it's the Council of Owls. And she's like, everybody that finds out about them dies. And the sister asked actually a smart question. Hey, so if everybody who finds out about them dies, how come you're not dead? She's like, oh, well, because, well, all you guys were in orphanages or rich homes or whatever. I was spending my days growing up in Arkham Asylum, and people were spouting off about it in the halls. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, like, oh, we're already dead. And I'm like, okay, then how come those people in Arkham Asylum were spouting off about it, found out about it, how come they didn't die? So, yeah. What the heck? So she says some weird poem, and then it ends there. Oh no, I'm sorry. It ends with the detective guy getting his head chopped off by some rando. Yeah, this was a very... It was pretty bad. I think I was too generous in... I think I was too generous in giving it a, like, 5 out of 11. It's more like a 2 or 3. It's pretty bad. So yeah, that's a breakdown of it. I don't know why Warner Brothers decided to release it. They should have taken a tax write-off, in my opinion, like they did with Batgirl. Well, at least they canceled Batwoman, though. Season 2. Would it be Season 3? Anyway, alright, this has been Luke's Television Review. Catch you later.